Security was dragging Brielle out of the suite while Elliot's pen hovered over the signature that would erase his entire empire. Her phone kept vibrating in her apron pocket. Her mom's doctor calling again. Because today wasn't only about money. It was about time. Brielle had spotted a consolidation schedule error that was not an error at all. It was a takeover, and the paperwork quietly handed control to a Delaware entity tied to Elliot's own CFO. Have you ever watched powerful people destroy a life because nobody wanted to admit the small person was right? Have you ever been dismissed at work because of your uniform, your accent, your background, your skin? This is what happens when ego becomes policy, and the wrong signature becomes a weapon. Stay to the end because the second signer on that Delaware entity is someone Elliot once loved. And the truth changes who the real villain is. Type, I've been ignored, if you've ever been underestimated. Because the story starts with humiliation and ends with a choice that costs blood, pride, and desire. Like and subscribe for stories where the truth fights back. Now let's cut back to the morning that put Brielle in the path of a billionaire who was seconds from surrender. Brielle's wrist twisted in a guard's grip while Elliot stared at the contract like it could bite. The hotel suite smelled like leather and coffee gone cold. Papers covered every flat surface. Lawyers stood in dark suits near the windows, watching like crows. Nobody spoke. They just waited for the girl in the apron to leave. Brielle's feet barely touched the carpet. The guard pulled her toward the door with one thick hand wrapped around her arm. She tried to speak, but the pressure made her breath come short. This wasn't the kind of room where people like her got to talk twice. Her phone buzzed again. Mom's doctor. Third call in 20 minutes. She couldn't answer. She couldn't even reach her pocket. All she could do was try to make eye contact with the man at the table, the one holding the pen like it weighed 100 pounds. Elliot hadn't signed yet. That mattered. He was tall, sharp in a gray suit that probably cost more than her rent. Dark hair, tired eyes, jaw tight enough to crack teeth. He looked like someone who stopped sleeping weeks ago. But when the guard yanked Brielle toward the hallway, Elliot's gaze snapped up. His eyes locked on her mouth mid-protest. Heat sparked there, unexpected and wrong. She hated it. Hated that her body noticed him when her wrist was going numb and her job was about to vanish. "Sir," she said again, louder this time. "That page. The one behind the signature line. It's wrong." One of the lawyers laughed. Not loud. Just enough to cut. "She serves coffee," Quentin said from the corner. He was older, silver-haired, calm like a man who already owned the room. He smiled when he said it. "Let her go back to work." Brielle felt her face go hot. The guard tugged harder. Her sneakers squeaked on the floor. But Elliot raised one hand. Just a small motion. The guard stopped. The room went still. "Tell me exactly what you saw." His voice was low, steady, dangerous. It didn't sound like a question. It sounded like a test. Brielle swallowed. Her throat was dry. "The consolidation schedule. The liability total. It doesn't match the breakdown on the page before. Someone added a line. It shifts ownership." Quentin's smile didn't move, but something in his eyes did. Elliot set the pen down. He didn't look at Quentin. He kept his gaze on Brielle, and the weight of it made her skin prickle. "You read financial documents while you clear tables?" It wasn't mockery. It sounded like genuine surprise. Maybe respect. Maybe suspicion. "I read numbers," Brielle said. Her wrist still hurt. "And those numbers are lying." One of the lawyers coughed. Another checked his watch. Quentin stepped forward, smooth and unbothered. "Elliot, we're on a deadline. The lenders won't wait. Sign now, or the board moves without you." Elliot looked at the contract, then at Brielle, then at Quentin. "Give me a minute." "We don't have a minute." "Then make one." The guard let go. Brielle's arm dropped. She rubbed her wrist, heart pounding so hard she thought everyone could hear it. Elliot stood up slowly. He was taller than she expected. He moved around the table and stopped 2 feet from her, close enough that she could see the stubble on his jaw, the faint smell of soap and exhaustion. "Would you speak up if the room had power to ruin you?" he asked, barely above a whisper. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. She was already here, already ruined. Elliot turned back to Quentin, and his voice dropped into something colder. Tell me exactly what you saw. While Quentin smiles like he already won. Brielle ran the luxury hotel cafe shift on quiet speed, counting tips like survival. Morning rush was always the same. Business travelers ordering lattes they didn't finish. Couples splitting pastries. Regulars who knew her name but never tipped more than $2. She smiled at all of them. Smiled until her jaw ached. Smiled because rent was due in 5 days and her mom's treatment cost more than smiling ever paid. She kept a notepad in her apron pocket. Not for orders. For numbers. Patterns. Things that didn't line up. It started years ago when her mom's hospital bill showed duplicate charges for the same procedure. Brielle caught it. Saved them $4,000. After that, she couldn't stop seeing the gaps. The math that didn't math. The lines that hid in plain sight. Her phone buzzed during the mid-morning lull. She checked it behind the counter. A text from the billing department at Mercy General. Her mother Renee's treatment timeline was tightening. One missed payment meant no appointment. No appointment meant no scan. No scan meant the tumor kept growing while they argued about insurance codes and payment plans. Brielle's hands shook. She put the phone down and wiped the espresso machine until it gleamed. A guest brushed past her on the way to the cream station. A man in a wool coat, cologne too strong, moving too close. Brielle flinched. She always flinched. Control mattered to her body too. Space mattered. Touch mattered. She learned young that when you didn't have money, people thought they could take other things instead. She stepped back, smiled, said nothing. Her manager Val appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand. Table 12 wants a pour-over. And corporate's sending someone to the executive suite upstairs. Big deal. No interruptions. Got it. Brielle nodded. Got it. I mean it, Brie. No wandering. No small talk. In and out. I know. Val left. Brielle poured the coffee, delivered it, cleared 3 tables, refilled the pastry case. Her mind stayed on the text. The appointment. The bill. She did the math in her head while she worked. Tips plus paycheck minus rent minus groceries minus the payment plan equaled $23 short. $23 between her mom and the next scan. She could pick up a double. She could skip eating for a few days. She could call her aunt and beg again. Or she could keep her head down and hope the world didn't notice her long enough to let her save a life. Her notepad sat in her pocket. She pulled it out during her break, flipping through the pages. Coffee orders, shift times, and in the margins, numbers, calculations, patterns she noticed in menus, schedules, inventory reports. She saw the world in equations, problems in variables, lies in bad addition. She closed the notepad and looked up at the ceiling. Somewhere upstairs, the executive suite was filling with men in suits. Men who made decisions that moved markets. Men who didn't notice the girl who brought the coffee. Brielle took a breath, grabbed a tray, checked her apron. Her phone buzzed again. Same number, same desperation. She didn't answer. Not yet. She had 4 hours left on her shift. 4 hours to figure out how to make $23 appear out of nothing. Then Elliot walked in, and the room seemed to tilt toward him. He moved like gravity bent around him. Tall, sharp-eyed, exhausted in a way that looked expensive. His suit was perfect. His shoes were polished. His jaw was tight. He didn't look at anyone. He just walked straight through the cafe toward the elevators, and everyone stepped aside without being asked. Brielle watched him disappear behind closing doors. Her stomach twisted. She didn't know why. She didn't know him. But something about the way he carried himself felt like a countdown. Like a man walking toward the edge of something he couldn't see yet. She shook it off, grabbed another tray, headed toward the executive suite. Elliot signed smaller documents with a steady hand that hid panic. Contracts for office leases, vendor agreements, severance packages for people he couldn't afford to keep. Each signature felt like another piece of himself he'd never get back. He kept his face blank, kept his voice even, kept the mask on because the moment it slipped, the entire company would know he was drowning. His lawyer Marisol sat across from him, sorting papers into piles. "Today's the final day," she said without looking up. "Lenders set the deadline. If you don't sign the restructuring agreement by 5, they pull the loans and force liquidation." Elliot nodded. He'd heard it a dozen times. He knew the stakes. Bankruptcy, public failure, the end of the company his father built and his grandfather started. 3 generations gone because Elliot trusted the wrong people and missed the warning signs until it was too late. His phone buzzed. A text from Harper, his girlfriend, or the woman the world thought was his girlfriend. The distinction mattered, but only to him. "Harper, press is asking about the restructuring. I'm handling optics. Don't say anything until we align on messaging. Brand protection is everything right now." He stared at the text. Brand protection. That's what she called it. Not "are you okay?" Not "do you need me?" Just brand protection. He felt nothing looking at her name. That scared him more than the bankruptcy. When did he stop feeling anything at all? He set the phone down. Marisol glanced up. "You good?" "Fine. Liar." He almost smiled. Marisol was the only person left who talked to him like a human instead of a headline. "Quentin's on his way up," she said. "He'll have the final documents. This is it, Elliot. Once you sign, the restructuring vehicle takes operational control. You'll still have a title, but the board answers to the new entity. You're a figurehead." "I know. Do you? Because once your name is on that paper, you can't fight back. You're done." Elliot leaned back in his chair. The suite was too quiet, too clean. It smelled like money and failure. "What choice do I have?" "None. That's the point." His phone buzzed again. Another text from Harper. A photo this time. Her at a charity event, smiling beside a tech investor. She looked perfect. She always looked perfect. That was the deal. She handled appearances. He handled business. Except his business was collapsing and her appearances were all that kept the press from tearing him apart completely. He felt nothing looking at the photo. Not jealousy, not desire, not even irritation. Just empty. The door opened. Quentin stepped in, smiling that calm, controlled smile that made Elliot's teeth ache. He carried a leather folder. 2 assistants followed him, setting up documents on the table like a ritual. "Elliot," Quentin said warmly. "Ready to move forward?" Forward. Like this was progress. Like signing away control of his own company was growth. "Let's see it," Elliot said. Quentin laid out the paperwork. Page after page. Legalese. Clauses. Signature lines. Elliot's lawyer reviewed it, flipping through slowly. Quentin stood near the window, hands in his pockets. Relaxed. Too relaxed. Like a man who already won. Elliot picked up the pen. His hand didn't shake. He'd trained himself for that. Trained himself to look steady even when the ground was gone. "You're doing the right thing," Quentin said. "This saves jobs. Saves the company. You're protecting your legacy." Elliot almost believed him. Almost. Then his phone buzzed one more time. Not Harper. Not Marisol. A news alert. Sterling executive faces collapse amid financial scandal. The scandal wasn't real. The collapse was. And the world was watching. Elliot set the pen down for just a second. He looked at Quentin. Really looked. And for the first time, he noticed the smile didn't reach his eyes. The door opened again. A hotel staff member. A girl in an apron, carrying a tray of coffee. She moved quietly, setting cups on the side table. Elliot barely glanced at her. He was too busy trying to breathe. But then Quentin's phone buzzed. Just once. Quentin pulled it out, checked the screen, and his expression changed. Just for half a second. Too long. Elliot noticed. And that half-second pause was the first crack in a plan that had been running for months. Brielle saw the consolidation schedule header while clearing a tray. She wasn't supposed to look. Wasn't supposed to notice. The documents were spread across the table near the coffee station, pages stacked in neat piles. She reached for an empty cup, and her eyes caught the words at the top of one page. Consolidation schedule, liability restructuring vehicle, Delaware Entity 4782C. Her stomach dropped. She knew that format. Knew it from the hospital bills. From the apartment lease her landlord tried to bury in addendums. From every legal document designed to hide the truth in plain sight. She picked up the cup. Moved toward the tray. But her eyes stayed on the paper. The numbers were clean. Too clean. Perfect columns. Perfect totals. Perfect in a way that made her skin crawl because real numbers were never that perfect. Real numbers had breaks. Had inconsistencies. Had human error. These numbers had been scrubbed. Nausea hit. She tried to swallow it down. Tried to keep her face blank. But her hands started to shake, and the cup rattled against the saucer. She set it down fast, too fast, and one of the lawyers glanced up. "You good?" he asked. "Fine," she said. "Sorry." She turned toward the door. Her manager's warning echoed in her head. No interruptions. In and out. She was supposed to leave. Supposed to pretend she didn't see anything. Supposed to stay small and quiet and invisible. But she looked at the man at the table. Elliot. The one who looked like he was signing his own death sentence. And she thought about her mom. About the bills that didn't add up. About the people who counted on others not asking questions. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. The doctor again. She could feel the weight of it. The countdown. The choice. She looked at the paper one more time. Saw the line near the bottom. Delaware Restructuring Vehicle, Operational Control Transfer. And below it, in smaller print, secondary signer authorization required. 2 signatures. Not one. Brielle's breath caught. She scanned the rest of the page. Found the liability total at the bottom. Then flipped her eyes to the previous page, still visible under the edge of another document. The breakdown. The itemized list. The numbers didn't match. Not even close. Someone had added a line. A phantom liability. $15 million that didn't exist in the breakdown but showed up in the total. And that $15 million pushed the company past the threshold. Made the restructuring look necessary. Made the takeover look like rescue. Her heart pounded. She knew what this was. She'd seen it before. Not in boardrooms. In hospital billing. In rental agreements. In every contract designed to make you sign before you noticed the trap. This was theft. Clean, legal, brutal theft. The guard was watching her now. Standing near the door, arms crossed. She'd been in the room too long. She needed to leave. Needed to keep her job. Needed to get back downstairs before Val came looking. But Elliot's hand was moving toward the pen. And once he signed, the trap would close. The company would disappear. And the people who built the trap would walk away clean. Brielle's mouth went dry. She looked at the page. At the man. At the guard. At her future shrinking in real time. Then she heard her mom's voice in her head. "Renee, tired and sick and still fighting. Don't let them make you small, baby. Don't let them win by making you quiet." Brielle stepped forward. Her voice came out softer than she wanted. "Sir. There's a mistake." The room went cold. Every head turned. The lawyers froze. The guard straightened. Quentin's smile vanished for one full second before sliding back into place. Elliot looked up. His eyes met hers. Dark. Exhausted. Desperate. "Excuse me?" he said. "The consolidation schedule," Brielle said, her voice steadier now. "There's a mistake." One of the lawyers laughed. Quentin stepped forward, smooth and calm and deadly. "She serves coffee," he said again, louder this time. "Let her leave." But Elliot didn't move. He kept looking at Brielle. And in his eyes, she saw something that looked like hope. Fragile, dangerous hope. "What kind of mistake?" Elliot asked. Brielle pointed at the paper. Her hand didn't shake. "Not anymore. The liability total is $15 million higher than the breakdown. Someone added a line that's not on the previous page. And that extra $15 million is the only reason the restructuring vehicle looks necessary." Silence. Long, heavy, crushing silence. Then Quentin's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression changed. Not much. Just a flicker. A crack. But Brielle saw it. And so did Elliot. Security, Quentin said calmly. Escort her out. The guard moved forward, reached for Brielle's arm, but Elliot raised his hand. Wait. Elliot didn't sign. He set the pen down and looked at Brielle like she'd just handed him a lifeline made of glass. Fragile, breakable, but real. Show me, he said. The room went silent. Not the comfortable kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that comes right before everything breaks. Quentin stepped forward, smooth as oil. Elliot, she's a cafe worker. She doesn't understand corporate restructuring. We're on a deadline. Then we have time for her to show me what she's talking about. Brielle's heart slammed against her ribs. The guard stood 2 feet behind her, close enough that she could feel his breath. The lawyers watched like she was a bug that wandered onto the table. And Quentin's smile never moved, but his eyes went cold. She stepped closer to the table. Her hands didn't shake anymore. Fear burned through her system and left something harder behind. She pointed at the consolidation schedule. This page shows your total liabilities at $268 million, but the breakdown on the previous page only adds up to $253 million. Someone added $15 million that doesn't exist in the itemized list. One of the lawyers leaned forward. Temporary reserves are standard. They account for variable costs. Then why isn't the reserve listed in the breakdown? Brielle asked. Why does it only show up in the final total? Silence. The lawyer looked at Quentin. Quentin looked at Elliot. Elliot looked at the paper. She has a point, Elliot said quietly. It's a formatting inconsistency, Quentin said. His voice stayed calm, but something underneath it tightened. We can clarify it after you sign. The lenders are waiting. Elliot's gaze moved to Brielle's hands. They were steady now, capable, shaking only once when she pointed at the second signature box. He noticed the way her fingers hovered over the page like she was afraid to touch it. Who's the second signer? Elliot asked. Standard co-authorization, Quentin said. The restructuring vehicle requires dual approval for operational transfer. It's in the terms. I didn't ask what it was. I asked who. Quentin hesitated, just for a breath, just long enough for Elliot to notice. The CFO, Quentin said. Me. Brielle's stomach dropped. She looked at the signature line, at the initials printed underneath in tiny font. QL/co-authorized secondary entity holder. Comment receipts, if you believe truth needs proof, she whispered, barely audible. Elliot heard her. His jaw tightened. I want independent verification of these numbers before I sign anything. We don't have time for that, Quentin said, and this time his voice cracked. Just a little, just enough. The lenders set the deadline. If you don't sign by 5, they liquidate. Everything's gone. Jobs, legacy, your father's name, all of it. Then they liquidate. The room exploded. Not with sound, with tension. The lawyers started talking over each other. Marisol stood up, her face pale. Quentin's smile finally vanished. And what replaced it was something sharper. Hungrier. You're making a mistake, Quentin said. Maybe, but it's mine. Elliot stood. He was taller than Brielle expected. Taller than everyone in the room. He looked at her, and for a second, the exhaustion in his eyes lifted. Thank you, he said. She nodded. Couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. The guard's hand landed on her shoulder. Time to go, the guard said. But before she left, Quentin's phone buzzed. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression changed. Not much, just enough. A flicker of something that looked like panic. Or rage. Or both. Brielle saw it. So did Elliot. And in that half-second, the room shifted. The power moved. The trap became visible. Quentin looked up, saw them watching, and smiled again. But it was too late. They'd already seen the crack. Elliot bought them 24 hours. That's all. One day to prove Quentin was lying or watch the company burn anyway. The board erupted. The lawyers threatened. The lenders sent notices that read like death sentences. But Elliot held the line. I need time to verify the consolidation schedule. He told the board in a conference call that lasted 3 hours and cost him whatever goodwill he had left. "You're risking everything on the word of a waitress," one board member said. The contempt in his voice could cut skin. "I'm risking everything on math," Elliot replied. "If the numbers are wrong, we're signing over control based on fraud. If they're right, I'll sign tomorrow. And if you're wrong, then I'm wrong. But at least I looked." The call ended. Elliot sat alone in his office, staring at the wall. Marisol came in without knocking, her face tight. "You just painted a target on your back," she said. "And hers. Quentin's not going to let this go. He's got too much invested." "I know. Do you? Because accusing him without proof doesn't just cost you the company. Costs you everything. Reputation, credibility, any chance of recovering from this." Elliot nodded. He knew. He'd known the second he set the pen down. But something about the way Brielle looked at those numbers, like they mattered, like truth mattered, made him want to be the kind of man who didn't sign away his life just because it was easier. "Find her," Elliot said. "I need to talk to her." "Bad idea." "Find her anyway." Marisol left. Elliot stood and walked to the window. The city stretched out below him, endless and indifferent. He thought about Harper, about the photo she'd sent, about the way she smiled for cameras and never asked how he was really doing, about the contract they'd signed, publicly together, privately separate, that made their relationship a brand strategy instead of something real. He felt nothing thinking about her, and that terrified him more than bankruptcy ever could. An hour later, Marisol texted, "She's in the service hallway. 3rd floor." Elliot took the stairs, found Brielle standing near a laundry cart, arms crossed, looking like she wanted to disappear into the walls. When she saw him, her breath caught. He noticed everything about her. The way her hands tightened, the way her eyes went wide then guarded, the way she stood like she was ready to run or fight, whichever came first. "Can we talk?" he asked. "I don't think that's a good idea." "Probably not. But I need to ask you something." She looked around. The hallway was empty, but that didn't mean safe. "Make it fast." He stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough that he could speak without raising his voice. "Why did you say something? You could have walked out, kept your job, stayed invisible. Why risk it?" Brielle met his eyes. "Because my mom taught me that silence costs more than speaking up. And I've paid enough." Elliot felt something crack open in his chest. Something he thought died years ago. He wanted to ask her 100 questions. Wanted to know how she saw the numbers. How she learned to read contracts. How someone who served coffee knew more about his company than the people he paid to protect it. But before he could speak, heels clicked on the tile behind him. Harper. She appeared at the end of the hallway, perfect as always. Hair smooth, dress expensive, smile sharp as a knife. She looked at Elliot, then at Brielle, and her smile tightened like a trap snapping shut. "There you are," Harper said, voice bright and cold. "I've been looking everywhere." Elliot didn't move, didn't step away from Brielle, didn't pretend this was nothing. "We were just talking," he said. "I can see that." Harper's eyes stayed on Brielle. "You're the girl from the meeting, the one who interrupted." Brielle nodded, said nothing, but Elliot saw her jaw tighten, saw the way she held her ground even though Harper looked at her like she was dirt. "Elliot, we need to go," Harper said. "Press is waiting. Optics matter right now. Give me a minute." "We don't have a minute." Harper reached for his arm. Her fingers wrapped around his wrist, light and possessive. Elliot felt nothing. No warmth. No connection. Just the faint smell of her perfume and the weight of a relationship that was always performance. Never real. He pulled his arm back. Gently, but firmly. "I said give me a minute." Harper's smile didn't move, but her eyes went ice cold. She looked at Brielle one more time, slow and deliberate, like she was memorizing every detail. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking like a countdown. Brielle let out a breath she'd been holding. "That's your girlfriend? It's complicated. Looks pretty simple to me." Elliot almost smiled. He noticed the faint smell of ink and lemon polish on his cuff. noticed how close they were standing, noticed Brielle's breath coming faster now that Harper was gone. "I need your help," he said. "I need to understand what you saw. All of it. Can you do that?" Brielle looked at him. Really looked. Like she was deciding whether to trust him or run. Finally, she nodded. "Okay. But not here." "Where?" "Somewhere Harper can't find us." Brielle didn't expect Yvette. Nobody did. She appeared in the laundry corridor 2 hours after the meeting, hands shaking so hard she could barely hold the flash drive. Her face was pale. Her eyes kept darting toward the security camera in the corner. "Take this," Yvette whispered. "Don't tell anyone I gave it to you." Brielle stared at the small black drive. "What is it?" "Proof. Real numbers. The files Quentin thought he deleted." Yvette's voice cracked. "I've worked in this hotel for 12 years. I've seen things, heard things. But I never said anything because I need this job. I need the insurance. I need—" She stopped, swallowed hard, looked at Brielle like she was drowning. "Why now?" Brielle asked. "Because you spoke up. And if you burn for telling the truth, then we all do. Every single one of us who stayed quiet." Yvette pressed the flash drive into Brielle's hand and walked away fast, shoulders hunched like she expected someone to grab her. Brielle watched her disappear around the corner. Then she looked at the drive. It was warm from Yvette's hand, felt heavier than it should. She slipped it into her pocket and headed for the service elevator. Her shift was over. She needed to get out, needed to think, needed to figure out what to do with proof that could save Elliot or destroy her. The elevator doors opened. Elliot was inside. They stared at each other. Neither spoke. Then the doors started to close, and Brielle stepped in without thinking. The elevator moved. Silence pressed down. Brielle's heart hammered. She could feel the flash drive in her pocket like a bomb. Could feel Elliot standing too close, his presence filling the small space. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No. Me neither." His hand hovered near her lower back. Not touching, just there. Close enough that she could feel the heat. She wanted to step away, wanted to keep the distance that kept her safe. But something in her was tired of safety, tired of shrinking, tired of being invisible. She nodded once, just a small movement. Permission. His hand settled against her back. Light, careful, like he was holding something fragile. Brielle's breath caught. She hated how good it felt, hated how much she wanted to lean into him, hated how fast her walls were crumbling. The elevator stopped. Doors opened. They didn't move. "Would you trust a stranger who risks their job to tell you the truth?" Brielle asked, voice barely above a whisper. Elliot looked at her. "I'm trying to." She pulled the flash drive from her pocket and held it up. "Someone just gave me this. Said it's proof. Said it's the real numbers." Elliot's eyes widened. "Who?" "Doesn't matter. What matters is what's on it." "Do you trust them?" "I don't know. But I trust the numbers. And if these numbers are real, then Quentin's not just lying. He's stealing." Elliot took the drive carefully, like it might explode. "We need to look at this. Now." "Your place or mine?" Brielle asked, then almost laughed. "Never mind. I live in a studio with 2 roommates and a bathroom that doesn't lock. My place, then." They stepped out of the elevator. The lobby was busy. People everywhere. Brielle felt exposed. Like everyone was watching. Like the flash drive was glowing in Elliot's hand. They made it to the parking garage. Elliot's car was sleek, black, expensive. Brielle slid into the passenger seat and felt like she was entering a different world. Leather, technology, space, everything she didn't have. Elliot started the engine, pulled out, drove in silence for 3 blocks. Then he spoke. "Thank you for trusting me with this. Don't thank me yet. We don't know what's on it. Doesn't matter. You're risking everything by having it. That's not nothing." Brielle looked out the window. The city blurred past. She thought about her mom, about the bills, about the job she'd probably just lost by getting into this car, about the choice she'd made to speak up when staying quiet would have been easier. "I'm scared," she admitted. Me too. They pulled into an underground garage, took a private elevator to the top floor. Elliot's apartment was everything Brielle expected and nothing she was ready for. Floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that looked like art, space that felt like freedom. He led her to a desk, plugged in the flash drive, and opened the first file. Numbers filled the screen. Spreadsheets, ledgers, emails, all of it time-stamped and labeled. All of it showing exactly what Brielle suspected. The liabilities were fake. The restructuring was a takeover, and Quentin had been building it for months. Elliot went still, his face drained of color. This is worse than I thought. Brielle leaned closer, scanning the files. Then she stopped, froze, pointed at one email chain. Look at the sender. Elliot looked. His jaw tightened. That's from my corporate server. Someone with internal access sent this. Who has that kind of access? Executive level. C-suite. Board members. He scrolled down. Stopped. And Harper. Before Brielle could respond, Elliot's phone buzzed. A text from building security. Security footage from service hallway, timestamp 1447, has been deleted. No backup available. That was the exact time Yvette handed over the flash drive. Someone was watching. Someone knew. And now the proof of the handoff was gone. The story hit the internet at midnight. Brielle woke to her phone exploding with notifications. Text messages from people she barely knew. Missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. And headlines that made her stomach turn. Waitress seduced billionaire CEO in failed shakedown attempt. Hotel employee accused of forging corporate documents. Sterling CEO's mystery woman. Gold digger or whistleblower? She sat up in bed, hands shaking. The articles were everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, news sites, each one worse than the last. Each one painting her as a liar, a schemer, a nobody who tried to trap a powerful man and failed. One article included a photo, her staff ID picture from the hotel. Hair pulled back, no makeup, apron visible. The caption read, Brielle Torres, 26, cafe worker with history of financial complaints. She clicked on the article. Read 3 sentences before nausea hit. Sources close to Sterling Industries claim Torres approached CEO Elliot Sterling with fabricated financial documents, attempting to leverage a romantic connection for monetary gain. Security footage allegedly shows Torres spending time alone with Sterling in private areas of the hotel. Sterling's representatives have not commented, but insiders suggest legal action may follow. Brielle's vision blurred. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. They'd turned her truth into a crime, turned her voice into a weapon against herself. And somewhere, someone was smiling because the plan was working. Her phone rang. Elliot. Don't believe it, he said before she could speak. None of it is true. It doesn't matter if it's true. It's out there. It's everywhere. We'll fight it. We'll issue a statement. They have a photo of us, Elliot, in the hallway, standing close. They made it look like something it wasn't. Silence. Then low and raw. I can't sleep. Haven't slept in days. And now this. They're coming after you because of me. Brielle almost reached for her phone like she could reach through it and touch his face. Almost let herself imagine comfort instead of consequences. But reality crashed back in. Your board's going to use this. They're going to say I'm a distraction, that you're compromised, that you need to sign the papers and move on. Let them try. Elliot, you're not hearing me. This isn't just about the company anymore. This is about my life, my reputation, my ability to work anywhere ever again. They're destroying me to protect themselves. Another buzz, another notification, a video this time. Someone had edited together security footage. Brielle entering the executive suite, Brielle in the elevator with Elliot, Brielle leaving the building late at night. Set to dramatic music with text overlay. The truth behind the scandal. Comments poured in. Thousands of them. Most calling her names. Most assuming guilt. Most deciding her entire life based on 30 seconds of edited footage. Brielle's phone buzzed again. Not social media this time. Email. Official letterhead. Law firm she'd never heard of. Notice of intent to file criminal charges. Ms. Torres, this letter serves as formal notice that Sterling Industries is pursuing criminal charges against you for theft of confidential documents, attempted extortion, and fraud. You are advised to retain legal counsel immediately. She dropped the phone. It hit the floor and the screen cracked. She didn't pick it up. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think past the headlines scrolling behind her eyes and the knowledge that someone powerful wanted her erased. Her roommate knocked on the door. Bree, you okay? Someone's outside asking for you. Who? Reporter. Says she wants your side of the story. Brielle laughed. Came out broken. Tell her I don't have one. She grabbed her phone. The cracked screen made everything look shattered. She texted Elliot. They're moving to blame me formally. Legal notice just came through. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, don't sign anything. Don't talk to anyone. I'm coming to get you. Don't. It'll make it worse. I don't care. You should. Her phone rang. She answered. I'm not letting them do this to you, Elliot said. His voice was rough, exhausted, furious. I'll go public. I'll tell them everything. And trigger lender panic. And lose the company. And prove them right that I'm a distraction. Brielle's voice cracked. I knew this would happen. I knew speaking up would cost me everything. Then why did you do it? Because someone had to. Silence. Long and heavy and full of everything they couldn't say. Time pressure. Elliot's board demands the signature by morning or they remove him, Brielle whispered, reading from another article that just appeared. They're using me to force your hand. I won't let them. You might not have a choice. The call ended. Brielle sat on the edge of her bed, surrounded by shattered headlines and broken credibility. Her entire life reduced to clickbait. Her truth buried under lies that spread faster than she could fight. And somewhere in a boardroom, someone was counting down the hours until Elliot had no choice but to sign everything away. Brielle entered the boardroom in borrowed clothes, refusing to shrink. Marisol had brought them. A simple black dress, blazer, heels that didn't quite fit. Look like you belong, Marisol said. Even if you don't feel it. She didn't feel it. She felt like prey walking into a cage full of predators. But she kept her chin up, kept her spine straight, kept walking even though every instinct screamed to run. The boardroom was massive. Glass walls, long table, expensive chairs. 12 executives sat waiting, faces ranging from curious to hostile. Quentin sat at the far end, smiling like he'd already won. Harper stood near the window, arms crossed, watching Brielle like she was a stain that needed removing. Elliot sat at the head of the table. He looked exhausted, wrecked. But when Brielle walked in, something in his expression shifted, strengthened. Ms. Torres, the board chairman said, not standing. Thank you for joining us. It wasn't a thank you. It was a warning. Brielle sat in the empty chair someone pointed to. It was at the far end of the table, away from Elliot, isolated, deliberate. The car ride up had been tense. Elliot insisted on picking her up himself. Security tried to stop him. He ignored them. In the elevator, his knee brushed hers. Just a small touch. Accidental maybe, but neither of them moved away. And that tiny point of contact felt like the only solid thing in a world collapsing. Ms. Torres, the chairman continued, you've made serious allegations about our CFO and our restructuring process. Allegations that have caused significant disruption and reputational harm. I pointed out a math error, Brielle said calmly. That's not an allegation. That's accounting. One executive laughed. Not kindly. You're a cafe worker. I can still count. Can you explain corporate restructuring? Liability management? Debt consolidation vehicles? Can you explain why your consolidation schedule has $15 million that don't exist in the breakdown? Silence. Sharp and sudden. The chairman's smile tightened. We've reviewed the documents, he said. The discrepancy you mentioned is a standard reserve allocation. It's been explained. Then why wasn't it itemized? Because reserves are fluid. They don't require line-by-line documentation at the summary level. Brielle pulled out a folder Elliot had given her. Inside were printouts from the flash drive. She slid them across the table. These emails show the reserve was added 3 days before the signing deadline. It wasn't fluid. It was manufactured to push the total past the threshold that triggers mandatory restructuring. The executives leaned forward, started reading. Faces changed. Quentin's smile finally vanished. "Where did you get those?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. "Does it matter? They're real. They're confidential. Stolen. They're proof. If you've ever been talked over, hit like so this story reaches the ones who need it," Brielle said. Looking directly at the camera phone, one junior executive was barely hiding under the table. The chairman stood. "This meeting is over." "No, it's not," Elliot said. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't have to. "She came here to present evidence. Let her finish." "Elliot, she's compromised your judgment. She saved my company. She's trying to extort you. Then where's her demand? Where's the ask? Where's the money she's supposedly after?" Elliot's voice was cold now. Hard. "She pointed out fraud and you're punishing her for it. That's not governance. That's covering up." Quentin stood slowly. He pulled a tablet from his briefcase and set it on the table. Tapped the screen. An email appeared, projected onto the wall behind him. It was from Brielle's email address. Sent to Elliot. Time-stamped 2 days ago. "I know what you need. Meet me tonight and we can discuss terms. This doesn't have to go public." Brielle's blood went cold. "I never sent that. Your email. Your IP address. I don't care what it says. I never sent it." "Then someone has access to your accounts." Quentin smiled. "Which means either you're lying or you're careless. Either way, you're not credible." The room tilted. Brielle felt the walls closing in. Felt the trap tightening. They'd planned this. Every step. Every move. They knew she'd fight back, so they built evidence to bury her first. She looked at Elliot. His face was pale. His jaw tight. He believed her. She could see it in his eyes. But belief didn't matter when the evidence said otherwise. "I didn't send that email," she said again. Quieter this time. Desperate. "Prove it," Quentin said. And she couldn't. That was the trap. The perfect, unbeatable trap. Harper found Brielle in the hotel lobby 20 minutes after the board meeting collapsed. She moved like silk, heels clicking soft against marble. Smile painted on like armor. She didn't ask permission. Just sat down in the chair across from Brielle and crossed her legs like she owned the space. "That was ugly," Harper said. Her voice was soft. Almost kind. Almost. Brielle didn't answer. She was still shaking from the boardroom. Still seeing that fake email projected on the wall. Still feeling the trap close around her throat. "I can help you," Harper continued. "If you let me. I don't need your help." "Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet." Harper leaned forward, elbows on her knees, face open and concerned. The performance was flawless. "You're in over your head. These people will destroy you. They'll make sure you never work again. Never get a loan. Never rent an apartment. They'll erase you. Then why are you here? Because I don't think you're the enemy. I think you're collateral damage. And I hate watching innocent people burn for things they didn't do." Brielle almost believed her. Almost. But something in Harper's eyes stayed cold even when her mouth smiled. "What do you want?" Brielle asked. "I want you to walk away. Take this." Harper pulled an envelope from her purse and set it on the table between them. $50,000. Cash. Enough to cover your mom's treatment and get you out of the city. Start fresh somewhere quiet. No charges. No lawsuits. No headlines. Just gone. Brielle stared at the envelope. 50,000. More money than she'd ever seen. Enough to save her mom. Enough to disappear. Enough to stop fighting a battle she couldn't win. "And if I don't take it? Then the charges move forward. The email evidence stands. You go to trial. You lose. And your mom loses her treatment coverage because you'll be unemployed and uninsurable." Harper's voice stayed soft, but the threat underneath was sharp as glass. I'm offering you mercy, Brielle. Take it. Mercy. That's what she called it. But it felt like ownership. Felt like buying silence. Felt like being erased for convenience. Across the lobby, Elliot appeared. He was talking to Marisol, gesturing sharply, face tight with frustration. Harper touched Brielle's hand, drawing her attention back. He can't protect you, Harper said. He's barely protecting himself. The board's moving to remove him. The lenders are circling. And you're the reason they have ammunition. Every minute you stay in his orbit, you make it worse. Brielle pulled her hand back. Is that what you tell yourself? That you're helping by making me disappear? I'm helping by being realistic. You spoke up. You tried. Now it's time to survive. Elliot noticed them. His eyes met Brielle's across the lobby, then shifted to Harper. His expression darkened. He started walking toward them. Harper saw it too. She stood smoothly, picking up the envelope and pressing it into Brielle's hands. Think about it. You have until tomorrow morning. After that, the offer disappears and the lawyers take over. She turned just as Elliot reached them. Harper touched his arm, light and possessive. Jealousy hit him like a bruise. Brielle saw it, saw the way his jaw tightened, saw the way he looked at Harper's hand on his sleeve like it burned. We need to talk, Harper said to Elliot. Privately. I'm busy. Elliot, the press is asking questions. Investors are nervous. We need to manage this before it spirals further. It already spiraled. Then let's contain it. Harper's voice dropped, intimate and urgent. Please. 5 minutes. Elliot looked at Brielle. She saw the question in his eyes. Saw him weighing protection against strategy. Saw him trapped between what he wanted and what he could afford. Go, Brielle said quietly. Handle your business. Brielle. I'm fine. Go. Harper smiled. Victory. Small but real. She guided Elliot toward a private conference room, hands still on his arm, body angled close. Brielle watched them disappear behind glass doors. Watched Harper lean in, talking fast, hands moving. Watched Elliot's face cycle through exhaustion, frustration, resignation. Is protection still love when it comes with silence? Brielle looked down at the envelope in her hands. Felt the weight of it. Felt the choice pressing down. Felt her mom's face in her mind, tired and sick and running out of time. She opened the envelope. Cash. Neat stacks. More than she'd ever held. Enough to save one life by sacrificing her own voice. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Harper's not just protecting Elliot. She's protecting herself. Ask her about the Delaware vehicle's second signer. Brielle's heart stopped. She looked up, scanning the lobby. Nobody watching. Nobody close. Just a text from nowhere that changed everything. She looked back at the conference room. At Harper leaning close to Elliot. At the smile that looked like comfort but felt like control. And Brielle realized Harper wasn't offering mercy. She was buying time. Elliot hired a forensic audit team that night. Cost him a fortune he didn't have and time he couldn't spare. But Marisol made the calls, and by midnight, 3 specialists were sitting in Elliot's apartment with laptops and spreadsheets and questions that cut like scalpels. We need full access, the lead auditor said. Her name was Chun. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, no patience for excuses. Bank records, internal ledgers, email servers, vendor contracts. Everything. You'll have it, Elliot said. And we need immunity from internal interference. No one blocks our access. No one deletes files. No one warns people we're coming. Done. Chun studied him. You understand this could go either way. We might find fraud. We might find nothing. We might find problems you didn't know about that make things worse. I understand. Do you? Because forensic audits focus on examining records to gather evidence that can stand up in legal proceedings. Once we start, we can't stop halfway. Whatever we find goes on record. Elliot nodded. He knew the risk. Knew this could sink him faster than Quentin's takeover. But he also knew Brielle was right. The numbers were wrong. And wrong numbers meant someone was lying. And lies eventually buried everyone. Start tonight, Elliot said. Chen's team spread across the dining table. Files opened. Numbers filled screens. Silence settled except for keyboard clicks and occasional murmured questions. Elliot watched for an hour, then gave up pretending to understand and moved to the kitchen. Brielle sat at the counter, her own laptop open, cross-referencing the flash drive files against public filings. She'd been there for 3 hours. Hadn't eaten, hadn't looked up, just kept working through numbers like they were a language only she could speak. Elliot made coffee, set a cup beside her. She glanced up, surprised, then grateful. "Thank you. You should rest." "So should you." "Can't. Too much riding on tonight." Brielle took a sip of coffee, closed her eyes. "This is good. I have a very expensive machine. Or you just know how to pay attention." She looked at him, really looked. "That matters more than people think." Elliot sat on the stool beside her. Not too close, just close enough. Late night in his suite, and the world outside felt 1,000 miles away. In here, it was just numbers and coffee and 2 people trying to find truth in a system built to hide it. "Read me something," Elliot said. "What?" "The numbers. Read them to me. I want to understand." Brielle hesitated, then turned her laptop toward him and started reading. Line by line, entry by entry. Her voice was steady, clear, precise. She made accounting sound like poetry, made fraud sound like tragedy, made numbers tell a story about greed and deception and the quiet ways powerful people stole from everyone else. Elliot listened like it was prayer, like her voice was the only thing keeping him anchored, like understanding the theft meant he could finally fight back. Chun appeared in the doorway. "We found something." They moved to the table. The team had pulled up 3 different documents, cross-referenced and highlighted. "Your liabilities don't just look inflated," Chun said. "Someone shaped them, deliberately, over 18 months. She pointed at the screen. "This warehouse debt? Recorded in Q1 as a short-term obligation. Then again in Q3 as a long-term liability. Same debt. 2 entries. That's not an error. That's intentional duplication." "How much?" Elliot asked. 8 million. And it's not the only one. There's a vendor contract that's counted twice. A lease obligation that's been reclassified 3 times. Every move increases your total liability without adding actual debt." Brielle leaned forward. "Who approved the entries?" Chun pulled up another screen. "Authorization codes, digital signatures, timestamps, CFO office, Quentin Lawrence, and 1 co-signer." She paused. "Someone with executive access and personal authorization keys." "Who?" "The system shows initials. NK." Elliot went still. The room went quiet. Everyone felt the shift. "What's wrong?" Chin asked. Elliot didn't answer. Couldn't. Because NK meant Naomi Kincaid. His sister. His former CO. The person he trusted most in the world until she walked away 3 years ago saying she couldn't watch him destroy himself. She'd been gone. Silent. Vanished from his life completely. And now her initials were buried in the fraud that was killing his company. Brielle reached for his hand under the table. Squeezed once. He squeezed back. Held on like she was the only solid thing left. "Keep digging," Elliot said, voice rough. "I want to know everything she touched." Brielle traced warehouse debt lines and found the same obligation recorded twice. Took 4 hours and 3 pots of coffee, but she finally saw the pattern. The numbers weren't just wrong. They were designed. Built layer by layer to look legitimate until you pulled them apart and saw the skeleton underneath. "Here," she said, pointing at her screen. Chun moved closer. So did Elliot. "This is the original warehouse financing agreement. Signed January 15th, 2 years ago. 7-year term. Monthly payments. Standard commercial real estate debt." "Okay," Chin said. "Now look at this." Brielle pulled up another file. Same warehouse. Same loan number. But recorded again in September that year as a separate liability line. Different category. Different payment schedule. Same amount. "A double counting error," Chun said slowly. "Same expense or cost included more than once." inflating totals. Exactly. And it's not just this one. I found 6 more. Every single one recorded once as operational debt, then again as restructuring liability. Each time it makes the company look worse. Makes rescue look necessary. Elliot stared at the numbers. His company. His legacy. Carved apart by people he trusted. Betrayed by family he loved. Destroyed by math that most people would never see. How did no one catch this? He asked. Because the audits were internal, Chen said. Approved by the CFO office. Signed off by executives with access. No external review. No independent verification. Just trust. Brielle kept working. Eyes scanning lines of data like she was reading a crime scene. Elliot watched her. Watched the way she moved through numbers with absolute focus. Watched her refuse to stop even though exhaustion pulled at her edges. He stood, grabbed his jacket, and moved toward her. She was still sitting, still working, eyes half closed from fatigue. He draped the jacket over her shoulders. His fingers brushed her collarbone. Just for a second. Just enough for her breath to catch and her eyes to open. You need to sleep, he said. Almost done. Brielle. 5 more minutes. He smiled despite everything. Despite the fraud. Despite the betrayal. Despite the fact that his world was ending. She made him smile anyway. 10 minutes, he said. Then you rest. She nodded. Went back to the numbers. Elliot stayed close, watching over her shoulder, breathing in the faint smell of her shampoo and hotel soap and determination. Chun called from across the room. Found another one. Temporary reserve account. Set up 2 years ago as a variable cost buffer. $3 million. That's standard, Marisol said. It was. Until someone reclassified it 6 months ago as a permanent liability. Same money. Different category. Changes the debt-to-asset ratio just enough to trigger mandatory restructuring clauses. Let me guess, Elliot said. Approved by NK. Chen checked. And QL co-signed. Brielle's head dropped. Not from exhaustion. From recognition. That's the turning point. That's when bad became fatal. They pushed you past the threshold on purpose. Elliot sat down hard. The weight of it crushed him. His sister. His CFO. 2 people he gave everything to. 2 people who took that trust and weaponized it. Why? He asked. Not to anyone. Just to the air. To the universe. To whatever cruel joke made family into enemies. Why would she do this? Brielle turned to face him. Her eyes were soft. Sad. Understanding. Because people convince themselves that harm is help when they're desperate enough. She probably thinks she's saving you. By destroying me? By making the choice for you. Silence. Heavy and bitter. Elliot looked at the numbers. At the pattern. At the proof that the people closest to him had been slowly killing his company while telling themselves it was mercy. His phone buzzed. A message from Naomi. First one in 3 years. We need to talk. Tomorrow. Just you. No lawyers. No staff. No distractions. Elliot showed Brielle the text. She read it and her jaw tightened. It's a trap. Maybe. But I need to hear it from her. Elliot. I need to know why. Brielle looked at him. Saw the pain underneath the anger. Saw the brother who still loved his sister even though she'd stabbed him in the back. Saw the man who needed closure even if it destroyed him. Then I'm coming with you, Brielle said. She won't talk if you're there. I don't care. You're not facing her alone. Elliot wanted to argue. Wanted to protect her from more damage. But the truth was, he didn't want to face Naomi alone either. Didn't trust himself not to break or forgive or both. Okay, he said quietly. Brielle dozed at the table an hour later. Head on her folded arms. Breathing slow and even. Elliot watched her sleep. Watched the numbers still glowing on her screen. Watched the evidence pile up against people he loved and the woman who risked everything to show him the truth. He picked up his jacket from her shoulders, careful not to wake her. Replaced it with a blanket. Dimmed the lights. Let her rest. Because tomorrow he'd face his sister. And the answer to why family became betrayal might be worse than the crime itself. They tracked the restructuring vehicle across 3 states and a dozen shell companies. The trail was designed to disappear. Layers of holding entities, each one owned by another, each one registered in a different state with different privacy laws. But Brielle had the flash drive. And the flash drive had breadcrumbs that someone, Yvette probably, had carefully preserved. "Look," Brielle said, spreading papers across Elliot's desk. "The Delaware vehicle is registered as Entity 4782C. Owner listed as Sterling Restructuring Holdings, LLC. Clean. Simple. Looks internal." "But it's not," Elliot said. "No. Sterling Restructuring Holdings is actually owned by a Nevada entity called Strategic Capital Partners. And that Nevada entity is owned by a Wyoming trust called Legacy Investment Holdings." Chun, still working with them, nodded approvingly. "Classic SPV structure. A special purpose vehicle, a separate legal entity often formed for a specific investment or deal, commonly used to isolate risk or hold assets. Keeps the real owners hidden behind layers." "So who owns the Wyoming trust?" Elliot asked. Brielle pulled up another document. 2 trustees, Quentin Lawrence. She paused, looked at Elliot, and Naomi Kincaid. The air left the room. Elliot stood frozen, staring at his sister's name on legal documents designed to steal his company. Not just betrayal, conspiracy, months of planning, years maybe, all while he thought she'd simply walked away because she couldn't handle the stress. She hadn't walked away. She'd been building a trap. "There's more," Chun said quietly. She pulled up bank records. The Wyoming Trust received 2 large cash infusions, $5 million each, different sources. One from an offshore account tied to Quentin. The other. She hesitated. "Say it," Elliot demanded. "A personal trust account, registered under your father's estate, transferred 6 months after his death." Elliot's hands curled into fists. His father's estate. Money that was supposed to go to charity, to family, to securing the company's future. Instead, it funded the vehicle designed to tear the company apart. Naomi had stolen from their father's grave. Brielle stood and moved beside him. She didn't touch him, didn't speak, just stood close enough that he could feel her presence. Close enough that he wasn't alone. "How do we stop it?" Elliot asked. "We trace ownership back to the source," Chun said. "We prove the vehicle was created under false pretenses. We show the court that the restructuring wasn't rescue, it was theft. And we freeze the transfer before it completes. That takes time. We have 48 hours before the automatic transfer clause triggers. After that, operational control moves to the vehicle regardless of your signature status." Elliot looked at Brielle. "Quentin built a backup plan. Even without my signature, the vehicle takes control. He's been planning this for years," Brielle said. "This wasn't opportunistic. This was designed." Marisol burst through the door, face pale. "We have a problem. Police just issued a warrant. They're coming for the flash drive. And they're coming for Brielle." Elliot stepped forward. "On what grounds?" "Theft of confidential documents. Someone filed a complaint. They have evidence that Brielle accessed restricted files and removed physical property from hotel premises." "That's insane. She was given the drive." "Prove it." "Yvette's not answering calls. Security footage is gone. And the email trail makes Brielle look guilty. The warrant's active. They'll be here within the hour." Elliot turned to Brielle. She looked scared. Really scared. Not the defiant kind. The kind that came from knowing the system was rigged and she'd just run out of moves. "We need to go," Elliot said. "Where?" "Somewhere they can't find you. Somewhere safe. Somewhere we can finish this." He grabbed her hand, pulled her toward the door. But she stopped, pulled back, looked at him with eyes that were terrified and determined. "Do you trust me?" he asked. It was a ridiculous question. She barely knew him. He'd brought nothing but chaos into her life. Her job was gone. Her reputation destroyed. Her mom's treatment in jeopardy. Everything she touched around him turned to disaster. But she looked at him. At the man who delayed signing to listen to her. who believed her when everyone else called her a liar, who stood beside her when the entire world turned against them both. Elliot pressed her against the window, fully clothed, careful, desperate. "Do you trust me?" he asked again. She hated her own answer, hated how fast she'd fallen into this, hated how real it felt when everything else was lies. "Yes," she whispered. They ran. Chun stayed behind with Marisol, buying time with legal arguments and procedural delays. Elliot and Brielle took the service elevator, then the parking garage, then a car that wasn't his. He'd planned for this, had an exit strategy for when everything collapsed. They drove for an hour, out of the city, into quiet suburbs, into a neighborhood that looked ordinary and safe and forgettable. He pulled into a garage, closed the door behind them, led her into a small house with furniture that looked unused and air that smelled like dust. "Safe house," he explained. "Bought it years ago under a trust. No one knows about it." Brielle looked around. Small, plain, nothing like his apartment, nothing like his life. "How long do we hide?" she asked. "Until Chun finishes the trace. Until we have proof solid enough that they can't bury us both." His phone buzzed. A message from Chun. Ownership traces toward Quinton. Plus one hidden signer tied to Elliot's personal life. Not Harper. Worse. "We'll send details in 1 hour." Elliot showed Brielle. She read it twice, looked up at him with eyes that understood what he was just starting to process. "It's Naomi," Brielle said. "The hidden signer is your sister." Elliot nodded. Couldn't speak. Couldn't process. Couldn't reconcile the sister he loved with the person who'd spent years building his destruction. Brielle stepped close, wrapped her arms around him, let him break quietly while the world outside hunted them both. Police showed up at the hotel 30 minutes after Elliot and Brielle disappeared. 2 detectives. For uniforms. Warrant in hand. They swept through the employee locker room looking for Brielle like she was dangerous. Like she was a criminal. Like serving coffee and speaking truth were crimes worth prosecuting. Marisol watched from the lobby, phone pressed to her ear, lawyer voice sharp and unyielding. "You're making a mistake. My client is a whistleblower, not a thief. Your client removed confidential documents from a private business meeting," the detective said. "That's theft. We have a warrant. We have evidence. We have a case. You have a setup. Then your client can explain that to a judge." They left empty-handed. Brielle wasn't there. Her locker was cleaned out. Her phone was off. Her friends claimed they hadn't seen her. The hotel staff closed ranks, protecting one of their own even when the system demanded betrayal. But the damage was done. The story hit the news within an hour. Waitress wanted in corporate espionage case. Another headline that twisted truth into weapon. Another narrative that made Brielle the villain instead of the victim. Marisol called Elliot from her car, voice tight. "They're escalating. This isn't just about discrediting her anymore. They want her arrested. They want her silenced permanently." "Can they do that?" Elliot asked. "If they control the narrative?" "Yes." Defending Brielle publicly could trigger lender panic. "They'll say you're compromised. They'll say she's manipulating you. They'll use this to justify removing you from the board entirely." "So I'm supposed to let them destroy her?" "I'm saying the cost of protection might be higher than you think. You save her, you lose the company. You lose the company, you lose any power to fight back. They win either way." Elliot looked at Brielle. She sat on the couch in the safe house, knees pulled to her chest, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. She'd heard every word, understood every calculation, knew she was collateral damage in a war bigger than both of them. "Would you risk your reputation to protect someone the world already judged?" she asked quietly. Elliot set the phone down, crossed the room, knelt in front of her. "Yes, that's not smart. I don't care. Elliot, if you go public defending me, they'll use it to destroy you. Everything you've fought for disappears. Then it disappears. But I'm not letting them erase you to save myself." Brielle's eyes filled. She blinked the tears back, refusing to let them fall. "Why? You barely know me. Because you're the only person in this entire disaster who told me the truth. Everyone else lied or stayed silent or calculated profit margins while I burned. You risked everything for nothing. No payoff. No angle. Just truth. And if I can't protect that, then I don't deserve what I'm fighting for anyway. The moment stretched, fragile and real. Then Brielle leaned forward and kissed him. Not desperate. Not calculated. Just honest. A choice made freely in the wreckage of everything else. When she pulled back, her voice was steady. Then we fight together. All the way. No matter what it costs. Elliot nodded. Stood. Pulled out his phone. Marisol set up a press conference. Tomorrow morning. I'm making a statement. Elliot, I'm done hiding. I'm done calculating. I'm done letting them control the story. We go public with everything. The fraud. The fake emails. The Delaware shell. All of it. Silence on the line. Then, reluctantly, okay, I'll set it up. But once you do this, there's no going back. Good. He hung up, looked at Brielle. She looked terrified and relieved and determined all at once. His phone buzzed again. Not Marisol. A blocked number. He answered. Yvette? He asked. Silence. Then breathing. Then a voice, shaky and scared. They threatened my family. Told me if I testified, my daughter loses her scholarship. My husband loses his job. Everything we built disappears. Who threatened you? I can't say. I can't. A sob. I'm sorry. I wanted to help. I thought truth mattered. But they're going to destroy everyone who talks. Yvette, where are you? Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't find me. I needed you to know. I didn't betray you. I'm just too scared to save you. The line went dead. Elliot sat down hard. Brielle moved beside him. They didn't speak. Just sat in the growing dark of a safe house that felt less safe every minute. Outside, the world was turning against them. Inside, they had each other and proof that might not be enough. His phone lit up one more time. A message from an unknown number. Yvette stops answering calls. Brielle's phone rang at 3 in the morning. She knew before she answered. Knew from the ringtone. Knew from the time. Knew from the way her stomach dropped before her brain caught up. Ms. Torres. A nurse. Professional. Calm. Terrible. Your mother collapsed. She's at Mercy General. You should come now. Brielle was in the car before Elliot finished asking questions. He drove. She sat frozen in the passenger seat, watching the city blur past, feeling time slip through her fingers like water. Her mom was all she had, the only person who believed in her when everyone else saw a cafe worker with no future. The only voice that said, keep fighting, when the world said, stay quiet. And now she was collapsing. Again. Because Brielle chose truth over safety. Chose speaking up over keeping the job that paid for treatments. Chose Elliot's company over her mother's survival. The hospital was too bright. Too clean. Too full of people who looked calm while lives ended behind closed doors. Brielle found her mom's room. Renee lay in the bed, eyes closed, monitors beeping, for dripping slow and steady. The doctor met them in the hallway. She's stable. For now. But we need to run tests, scans, blood work, and... He hesitated. Her insurance coverage lapsed yesterday. We can stabilize her tonight, but ongoing treatment requires payment up front. Brielle felt the floor disappear. How much? First round of scans alone? 12,000. Treatment plan after that depends on results. 12,000. She had 200 in her account. Maybe 300 if she counted spare change and hope. How long do I have? To arrange payment? 72 hours. After that, we transfer her to county. They'll keep her alive, but treatment options are limited. 72 hours. 3 days. Same deadline as the forensic audit. Same deadline as the Delaware shell transfer. Same deadline as everything falling apart at once. Elliot stepped forward. I'll cover it. All of it. Whatever she needs. The doctor nodded and left. Brielle turned on Elliot, eyes blazing. No. Brielle. I don't need you to save me. I don't need your money. I don't need. Your mom needs treatment. That's all this is. Not a transaction. Not a bargain. Just help. Let me help. Brielle's hands shook. She wanted to yell. Wanted to refuse. Wanted to keep her pride intact even while her mom died in a hospital bed because pride didn't pay for scans. Why? She asked, voice breaking. Why would you do that? Because you saved my company. And because he stopped. Swallowed. Because I care what happens to you. And that means I care what happens to the people you love. Brielle felt something crack inside her. Something that had been holding her together since the moment she spoke up in that boardroom. Since the moment she chose truth. Since the moment everything started falling apart. She walked into her mom's room, sat beside the bed, took Renee's hand. Her mom's eyes opened, tired, hurting, but still sharp enough to see everything. Baby, Renee whispered. What's wrong? Nothing, Mama. Just rest. Liar, you've got that look. That everything's on fire but I'm pretending it's fine look. Renee squeezed her hand. Weak but insistent. Tell me. So Brielle did. Told her everything. The numbers. The fraud. The fake emails. The arrest warrant. The safe house. The boy, no, the man who believed her when everyone else wanted her gone. She told it all in a whisper, holding her mom's hand, feeling like a little girl confessing sins she didn't commit. Renee listened, didn't interrupt. When Brielle finished, Renee was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, voice rough but clear. Don't let pride bury you alive. What? You heard me. You're sitting here refusing help because you think accepting it makes you weak. Makes you owned. Makes you less. Renee's grip tightened. Pride is expensive, baby. And sometimes survival means letting people help even when it hurts your ego. Mama. That boy outside. He love you. Brielle froze. I don't know. It's complicated. Love always is. But does he see you? Really see you? Not what you can do for him. Not what you represent. You. The girl who counts numbers and fights battles she can't win because somebody has to. Brielle thought about Elliot. About the way he listened when she read numbers. About the way he stood beside her in boardrooms. About the way he looked at her like she mattered beyond her usefulness. Yeah, she whispered. I think he does. Then let him help. Let him stand with you. Let him be part of this fight instead of shutting him out because you're scared of needing someone. Tears finally came. Brielle let them fall. Let her mom see the fear and exhaustion and hope she'd been hiding. Let herself be human instead of strong. Renee pulled her close, kissed her forehead. Now go. Fight your fight. Save that man's company. Save your own future. I'll be here when you win. Brielle stood, wiped her face, walked into the hallway where Elliot waited. She didn't say anything. Just let him pull her close. Let him hold her in a hospital stairwell while she shook apart and came back together. His arms wrapped around her from behind. His hands covered hers, steadying the shaking. And for the first time since this started, Brielle let herself lean into someone else's strength. Her phone buzzed. A message from a blocked number. Sign tomorrow or your mother's coverage disappears. Last warning. Q. Brielle showed Elliot. His jaw tightened. His arms around her tightened too. He can't do that, Elliot said. He just did. Then we move faster. We finish the audit. We expose him. We end this before he can hurt anyone else. Brielle nodded. But she knew the truth. Quentin wasn't just threatening her mom's coverage. He was proving he could reach anyone, hurt anyone, destroy anyone who stood against him. And tomorrow, when the clock ran out, someone was going to pay the price. They went back to the safe house after midnight. The hospital was quiet. Renee was stable. The bill was paid. Elliot insisted Brielle stopped fighting. Some battles weren't worth pride. Some fights required surrender just to survive long enough to win the war. Inside, the house was dark except for one lamp in the corner. Elliot locked the door, triple-checked it, then stood there like he didn't know what came next. Like adrenaline had carried him this far, and now the silence was too heavy to hold. Brielle sat on the couch. exhausted, wrecked. But something inside her refused to stay broken. She looked at Elliot, really looked, at the man who'd risked everything to stand beside her. The man who believed her when belief cost him his company. The man who looked at her like she was worth more than the chaos she'd brought into his life. "Tell me about Harper," she said. Elliot turned, surprised. "What?" "The truth. Not the headlines. Not the performance. The truth." He sat down. Not close. Not far. Just careful. Like he was measuring distance against honesty. "Harper is a contract. A public relationship meant to stabilize investor perception. My company was struggling. My reputation was shaky. The board wanted optics. Harper wanted visibility. We signed an agreement. 6 months. Public appearances. Joint statements. Everything coordinated. Everything fake. Do you love her? No. I don't think I ever did. And that's the worst part. I let someone into my life who never mattered, and I shut out everyone who could've." Brielle felt something shift between them. Something real breaking through all the pretense and survival. "Why tell me now?" "Because you deserve to know. You deserve to understand that what's happening between us isn't part of a strategy. Isn't calculated. Isn't performance." His voice dropped. Raw. Honest. Desperate. "You scare me, Brielle, because everything with you feels real. And I haven't felt real in years." She stood, crossed the space between them, stood close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes, close enough to feel the heat coming off his skin, close enough to make a choice that couldn't be undone. "I'm scared too," she whispered. "Scared of needing you. Scared of losing you. Scared that this ends the second we solve the fraud and reality comes back. Then don't think about after. Think about now." Brielle initiated the kiss this time. Slow. Deliberate. A choice made freely without fear or calculation. Just want. Just need. Just two people choosing each other in the wreckage of everything else. Elliot kissed her back, but he didn't take control. Didn't assume. Didn't push. He asked permission for every step. Every touch. Every moment. Treating her like a choice, not a bargain. Like a person, not a transaction. "Is this okay?" he whispered against her mouth. "Yes. Tell me if it's not." "I will." They moved to the bedroom. Slow. Careful. Consent led in every breath. She set the pace. He followed. She decided how far. He respected it. And somewhere in the dark of a safe house while the world outside hunted them, they found something honest. Something real. Something that didn't need headlines or strategies or anything except each other. Afterward, they lay tangled together, breathing synchronized, hearts slowing back to normal. Brielle traced patterns on his chest. Elliot watched her like he was memorizing every detail. "What happens tomorrow?" she asked. "We face the board. We present the evidence. We fight. And if we lose, then we lose together." She almost believed him, almost let herself hope that this was more than survival, more than strategy, more than two people clinging to each other in the dark because they had nothing else. Then her phone buzzed. She reached for it, expecting another threat from Quentin. Instead, it was an email notification, a document attachment from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "You need to see this." She opened it, scanned the first page, froze. Her breath stopped. Her heart stopped. Everything stopped. "What is it?" Elliot asked. Brielle showed him. It was a copy of the Delaware vehicle's signature authorization. 2 signers, Quentin Lawrence, and below it, initials she recognized. Not Naomi's. Different. H.K. Harper Kensington. Elliot stared at the document. His face went pale. "That's not possible. Harper doesn't have access to." "She does if someone gave it to her." Brielle scrolled down, found the authorization grant, signed by Elliot himself, dated 3 years ago, back when Harper first came into his life, back when their relationship was new and public and designed to save his image. He'd given her the keys to his company without realizing she'd used them to steal it. His phone buzzed. An email. Subject line, "Removal vote, 8 a.m. The board was moving. They had 9 hours. 9 hours to prove fraud. 9 hours to stop the takeover. 9 hours before Elliot lost everything and Brielle became collateral damage in a war that started years before she ever served coffee in that suite. "We need to move," Elliot said. "Now." Elliot called a press conference at dawn. No warning. No coordination. No approval from the board or the lawyers or anyone who thought they controlled the narrative. Just him, a microphone, and the truth. He stood outside the Sterling Industries building, cameras everywhere, reporters shouting questions, the world watching while he burned his own life down. Brielle stood off to the side, out of frame, close enough to matter but far enough to stay protected. "I'm halting the bankruptcy process," Elliot said, voice steady despite the storm. "Effective immediately. I'm demanding a full forensic review of all company liabilities and restructuring proposals. Evidence has come to light suggesting the financial collapse was manufactured. Fraud. Deliberate. Designed to force a takeover." The crowd erupted. Questions flew like bullets. Reporters pressed forward. Cameras flashed. And somewhere in a boardroom, executives were watching their carefully built plan unravel in real time. "Who's responsible?" someone shouted. "The forensic audit will determine that. But I will not sign over control of this company based on false numbers. I will not let theft disguise itself as rescue." "What about the lenders? They'll be paid. Properly. Honestly. But not through fraud." "This will cost you the company," another reporter yelled. "Then it costs me the company. But at least I'll know I didn't give it away to people who lied." The board members were calling. Texts pouring in. Threats. Demands. Panic. Marisol stood beside the building, phone to her ear, trying to manage the fallout. Lenders threatening penalties. Investors threatening to pull out. The whole structure shaking because one man chose truth over survival. Harper appeared at the edge of the crowd. Perfect as always. Face calm. But her eyes were cold. She pushed through reporters, moving toward Elliot like she owned him. "Elliot, what are you doing?" she asked, voice low and urgent. "What I should have done months ago. You're destroying everything. This is reckless. This is honest. Honest doesn't pay the bills. Honest doesn't save the company. Honest just makes you feel better while everything burns." Elliot looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time he saw past the performance. Saw the calculation. Saw the woman who'd been playing him since the day they met. "You knew," he said quietly. "About the fraud. About Quinton. About all of it. You knew and you stayed quiet." Harper's smile didn't move. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do." She stepped closer, voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. "Be smart, Elliot. Walk this back. Sign the papers. Let the restructuring happen. You keep the title. You keep the appearance. You keep me. And nobody has to know how close you came to losing everything. I already lost everything. I just didn't notice until someone showed me what theft looks like." He turned and walked away. Harper called after him, voice sharp now, the mask slipping. "You're making a mistake. The board will remove you. The lenders will destroy you. You'll have nothing." Elliot kept walking, straight to where Brielle stood. She looked terrified, proud, desperate, all at once. He pulled her into a side room, away from cameras, away from the noise, away from everything except the truth they'd fought so hard to find. Brielle pulled him close and kissed him like a vow, like a promise, like a choice made in full view of the consequences. "We're going to survive this," she whispered against his mouth. "I know. I don't know how, but we will. Together." They pulled apart, stepped back into the world, faced the cameras and the chaos and the knowledge that the next few hours would determine whether truth mattered or if power always won. Elliot's phone buzzed. A message from Quinton. Just 3 words. "Check the clause." Elliot opened his email. Found the restructuring agreement. Scrolled to page 47. Found the clause buried in legal language designed to hide it. Automatic transfer provision. In the event of public dispute or litigation regarding restructuring terms, Operational control transfers immediately to Delaware Entity 4782, C, pending resolution. The pause triggered the takeover. Fighting back activated the trap. Quentin had planned for this. Planned for Elliot's honesty. Planned for his resistance. And built a system where fighting only made it worse. Quentin smiled because the pause triggers an automatic clause he planted. Yvette reappeared 3 hours later. Not at the hotel. Not at the safe house. At a diner 40 miles outside the city. Sitting in a back booth with her hands wrapped around cold coffee and fear written across her face. Brielle and Elliot found her there. She looked smaller than she had before. Older. Like the weight of the truth had aged her overnight. "I'm sorry," Yvette said before they even sat down. "I wanted to help. I tried. But they found me. They threatened my family. Said if I testified, my daughter loses her scholarship. My husband loses his job. Everything we built disappears. They have power. Real power. The kind that reaches everywhere." "Who threatened you?" Elliot asked. "Quentin's people. Lawyers. Men in suits who smiled while they destroyed my life. They showed me photos. My daughter at school. My husband at work. Places they shouldn't know about. People they shouldn't be able to reach. And they said one word. One chance. Walk away or lose everything." Brielle reached across the table. Took Yvette's shaking hands. "We can protect you. We have resources. We have. You have nothing," Yvette said, voice breaking. "You're fighting people who own the system, who write the rules, who decide what truth is and who gets to speak it. You can't protect me. You can barely protect yourselves." "Then why are you here?" Elliot asked. Yvette pulled a folder from her bag. Set it on the table. It was thick, heavy, full of papers that looked official and terrifying. "Because my daughter asked me what I did when it mattered. And I want to be able to tell her I tried." She pushed the folder toward them. "This is everything. The final ledger trail. Every transaction. Every transfer. Every piece of proof you need to show the fraud. It's all here. Dated. Signed. Documented." "Yvette, I can't testify. I can't go public. I can't stand in a courtroom and point fingers. But I can give you this. And you can do what I can't. You can fight back." Brielle opened the folder. Scanned the first few pages. Her eyes went wide. "This shows everything. The phantom liabilities. The double entries. The Nevada routing. All of it. And more," Yvette said. "It shows who authorized each step. Who knew. Who helped. Who profited." She looked at Elliot. "It shows your sister wasn't the only one. There's someone else. Someone with access to your personal accounts. Your authorization keys. Someone you gave power to without realizing what they do with it." "Who?" "Read it. You'll see." They drove back in silence. The folder sat between them like a bomb. Brielle and Elliot's fingers intertwined, both scared of how real it felt. Both knowing that the evidence in that folder could save them or destroy them depending on what it revealed. "What if it's worse than we think?" Brielle asked. "Then it's worse. But at least we'll know. Knowledge doesn't always help. Sometimes it just hurts more." Elliot squeezed her hand. "I'd rather hurt with truth than live with lies." They pulled into the safe house garage, locked the doors, spread the documents across the table, started reading. Line by line, page by page, following the trail from Sterling Industries through shell companies and offshore accounts and back again. 2 hours in, they found it. The signature that changed everything. The authorization that gave Quentin access to Elliot's personal keys. The document that made the fraud possible. Signed 3 years ago. Witnessed and notarized. Legal and binding. Authorization grant. Executive access, Harper Kensington. Below it, a second signature. Co-authorization. Backup access in case Harper was unavailable. Naomi Kincaid. Both women. Both trusted. Both given power. Both using it to steal. Brielle looked at Elliot. His face was pale. Hands shaking. Eyes distant like he was somewhere far away where the betrayal couldn't reach him yet. "I gave them everything," he whispered. "Every tool they needed. every access point, every key. I handed them my company and said, "Please don't hurt me." And they took it and smiled and called it love. Brielle moved beside him, held him, let him break quietly while the evidence piled up and the truth became undeniable. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. Yvette's family just disappeared. No one can reach them. Last seen leaving their house with 2 men in suits. I think they're in danger. Brielle showed Elliot. His jaw tightened. They're cleaning up, getting rid of witnesses. What do? We move faster. We file everything. We go public with the ledger. We force the fraud into the light before they can bury everyone who knows about it. Another text, this time from an unknown number. Quentin didn't act alone. He had a signer with access to Elliot's personal keys. But you already knew that. The question is, who gave Quentin the keys first? Follow the money. Follow the timeline. Follow Harper. A friend. The forensic team reconstructed the liability ballooning and the Nevada consulting fee route. It took them 6 hours, 4 pots of coffee, and spreadsheets that looked like evidence from a murder trial. Chun led the presentation, pointing at screens filled with numbers that told a story about greed and deception and the slow death of a company. Here's how it worked, Chun said. Sterling Industries had legitimate debt. Normal. Manageable. But 18 months ago, someone started routing payments through a Nevada consulting entity called Strategic Advisory Partners. Small fees at first. $5,000, $10,000. Amounts that looked normal. Then the fees increased, Brielle added, following the trail on her own screen. $20,000, $50,000. By month 10, Sterling was paying $100,000 a month for strategic consulting that produced no reports, no deliverables, nothing except invoices. And those invoices were recorded as operational costs, Chun continued, which inflated your monthly liabilities, which made your debt-to-income ratio worse, which triggered restructuring requirements in your loan agreements. Elliot stared at the numbers. Who approved the Nevada entity? Quentin. Co-signed by Harper. Authorization granted by you. I never authorized consulting fees that high. You authorized Harper to approve operational costs up to $200,000 per month. That was in her executive access agreement. She used that authority to approve Quentin's invoices, both of them profiting while your company bled. And my sister? Chun pulled up another screen. Naomi came in later, 6 months ago. She didn't create the fraud, but she helped expand it. She reclassified temporary reserves as permanent liabilities. She moved debt from one subsidiary to another, making the same obligation appear twice. She turned bad into fatal. Why? That's not my job to determine. I just follow the numbers. And the numbers say she helped finish what Quentin and Harper started. Marisol burst through the door, phone in hand, face tight. We have a problem. Quentin just held his own press conference. He's calling this whole thing a distraction. Says Elliot is being manipulated by an obsessed employee. Says the restructuring is legitimate and necessary. And he's threatening to sue for defamation. Let him, Elliot said. Elliot, he's not just defending himself. He's attacking Brielle. Publicly. Calling her unstable. Dangerous. Saying she forged documents and seduced you to gain access. He's making her the villain. Brielle felt the walls close in. Felt the narrative shift again. Felt the truth getting buried under lies that sounded better. I can handle it, she said quietly. Can you? Because the press is running with his version. Social media's exploding. People are choosing sides. And most of them aren't choosing yours. Elliot stood. His voice turned protective when he said Brielle's name. Then we release the ledger. All of it. Every transaction. Every signature. Every piece of proof. We bury him in evidence so heavy he can't spin it. That exposes Naomi, Marisol warned. And Harper. You ready to burn down everyone you once trusted? They burned me first. Chun cleared her throat. There's something else. Something I found buried in documents filed years ago. Before Quentin. Before Harper. Before all of this. She pulled up an old corporate filing. Sterling Industries. Board composition. Dated 7 years ago. It showed initial investors. Founding capital. Original structure. Look at the seed funding, Chen said. $5 million from an entity called Kincaid Legacy Trust. Owned by your father's estate. Managed by your sister. That trust was supposed to be for charity. For family legacy. Instead, it was funneled into the company as investor capital, with terms that gave Naomi equity and voting rights. Elliot's face went ashen. She was an owner from the beginning. Not just an owner. A silent partner with terms that activated if the company hit certain debt thresholds. The exact thresholds Quinton's fraud created. She didn't just help finish it. She structured the company so the fraud would trigger her ownership. Silence. Long and crushing. The kind that comes when betrayal runs deeper than anyone imagined. Brielle stood and moved beside Elliot. Didn't touch him. Just stood close. Present. Solid. She played you for 7 years, Chen said quietly. Waiting for the moment you'd be desperate enough to accept rescue. And when that moment came, she made sure the rescue came from her. Elliot's phone buzzed. Marisol's. Brielle's. All at once. Coordinated message. An official statement from Sterling Industries. From the board. From Naomi herself. Emergency board resolution. Elliot Sterling removed from operational authority pending forensic review. Interim CEO appointed. Naomi Kincaid assuming temporary leadership to stabilize company during transition. The trap was complete. The fraud was exposed. And the person who built it just took control. Marisol finds one document filed years ago that links the scheme to Elliot's family. Naomi Kincaid walked into the safe house at midnight like she still had keys. Like she still belonged. Like the years apart and the betrayal between them meant nothing compared to blood. She looked older than Elliot remembered. Tired. Sharp. Beautiful in a way that made people trust her before they realized trust was a weapon in her hands. "Hello, Elliot," she said calmly. He stood frozen, staring at his sister like she was a ghost. Like seeing her made the betrayal real in a way documents and numbers never could. Like grief hit him before anger could. "You shouldn't be here," he said. "I know, but we need to talk. Just us. No lawyers. No press. No." She glanced at Brielle. "Distractions." "She stays," Elliot said. "Elliot. She stays or you leave." Naomi studied Brielle. Sized her up. Saw the girl who'd unraveled months of careful planning with nothing but math and a refusal to stay quiet. Something that might have been respect flickered in Naomi's eyes. Or maybe just calculation. With her, it was hard to tell the difference. "Fine," Naomi said. "She can hear this too. She earned it." They sat. Living room. 3 people. A silence so heavy it felt solid. Naomi folded her hands in her lap. Perfect posture. Perfect control. Like she was chairing a board meeting instead of confessing to corporate theft. "I know what you think," Naomi started. "You think I betrayed you, stole from you, destroyed the company Dad built. But you're wrong. I saved it. I saved you." Elliot's laugh was bitter. Sharp. "You bankrupted me. I stopped you from doing it yourself." Naomi leaned forward. "You were running Sterling into the ground. Bad decisions. Risky investments. Trusting the wrong people. You were going to lose everything anyway. I just made sure that when it happened, the company survived. That our father's legacy survived. That you survived, even if you hated me for it. By stealing. By restructuring. By forcing the collapse before it became irreversible. By making sure that when the company went under, it went to someone who cared about saving it instead of vultures who'd tear it apart for profit. You partnered with Quinton. Quinton was useful, smart, capable. He knew how to structure the deal, how to make the numbers work, how to create the vehicle that would protect the company's core assets while shedding the debt you'd accumulated. He's a criminal. He's a businessman. There's a difference. Not to me. Naomi's expression softened. Just for a second. Just enough to show something that might have been regret. "I didn't want to hurt you, Elliot. I wanted to save you. But you wouldn't listen. You kept fighting, kept refusing help, kept pretending you could fix it alone. So I made the choice for you. And yes, that meant working behind your back. That meant building a plan you'd hate. That meant partnering with people you didn't trust. But it also meant the company survives. Employees keep their jobs. Dad's name stays intact. And you, eventually, would have thanked me. I'll never thank you for this. Maybe not. But you'll understand. One day, when the anger fades, when you see that love can still be theft when the alternative is watching someone you care about destroy themselves. Brielle spoke for the first time. Did Harper know? Naomi turned to her, considered the question, considered the answer. Harper knew. She just stayed clean. She's smart that way. She helped craft the PR strategy, helped position Elliot as the tragic figure, helped build the narrative that would let the restructuring happen without destroying his reputation entirely. She was never going to sign the vehicle, never going to get her hands dirty, but she knew exactly what we were doing, and she profited from it. Elliot went still, like grief hit him before anger could. Brielle saw it, saw him processing the layers of betrayal. Sister, girlfriend, CFO, everyone he'd trusted, everyone who'd smiled while they took everything. She stood and moved behind him, kissed his forehead, slow, grounding, letting him feel something solid while his world cracked apart. I need you to leave, Elliot said to Naomi, voice steady despite everything. I need you to walk out and not come back. Elliot, I said leave. Naomi stood, smoothed her dress, collected her bag. But before she left, she turned back one more time. I'll meet with you again, whenever you're ready, but only if she's not present. She nodded toward Brielle. This is family business, not hers. Everything about this is hers, Elliot said. She's the only person who told me the truth. That makes her more family than you. Naomi's smile was sad, distant. We'll see. When the dust settles. When the company's saved. When you realize I was right, you'll call. And I'll answer. Because that's what family does. She left. The door closed. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elliot sat motionless. Brielle held him. Neither spoke. What was there to say? That betrayal hurt less when it came from strangers? That family made it worse because trust went deeper? His phone buzzed. A text from Naomi. One last thing Harper knew. She just stayed clean. Ask her what she signed. Not the vehicle. The PR plan. The scapegoat strategy. Ask her who she chose to burn to protect you. Then decide who the real villain is. Naomi agrees to meet, but only if Brielle is not present. The meeting happened in a hotel conference room. Neutral ground. Public enough to feel safe. Private enough to break. Naomi sat on one side of the table. Elliot on the other. Lawyers present. Marisol taking notes. Everything recorded. Everything official. Everything designed to keep emotion from becoming violence. Let's start with the truth, Naomi said. Her voice was calm, professional, like they were discussing quarterly earnings instead of the systematic destruction of everything their father built. You were finished, Elliot. 2 years ago, maybe 3. The debt was real. The bad investments were real. The company was dying. I didn't create that. You did. So you decided to speed it up? I decided to control it. There's a difference. An uncontrolled collapse destroys everything. Creditors take the assets. Employees lose their jobs. Dad's name gets dragged through bankruptcy court and attached to failure forever. A controlled collapse, a restructuring salvages what matters, protects people, preserves legacy. By lying, by being realistic. You weren't going to save the company, Elliot. You were too proud, too stubborn, too convinced you could fix it if everyone just gave you more time. But time wasn't the problem. You were. Your leadership, your decisions, your refusal to admit you needed help. Elliot's hands curled into fists under the table. So you decided to take over. I decided to save what I could. And yes, that meant partnering with Quentin. That meant structuring the vehicle. That meant inflating liabilities just enough to trigger mandatory restructuring so you'd be forced to face reality instead of pretending everything was fine. You stole from me. I saved you from yourself. Naomi's voice rose. First crack in the armor. I watched you destroy everything Dad worked for. I watched you make mistake after mistake. I watched you trust the wrong people, Harper, for God's sake, and refuse to listen to anyone who told you the truth. So yes, I took control. Because someone had to. Because letting you keep driving meant watching you crash. And I loved you too much to do nothing. Love. Elliot's voice was quiet. Dangerous. You call this love? What else would you call it? I could have walked away. Let you burn. Let the company collapse and started fresh somewhere else. But I didn't. I stayed. I built a plan that would save the parts worth saving. I made the hard choices you refused to make. That's love, Elliot. Ugly, painful, necessary love. Love doesn't steal. Love does whatever it takes to protect what matters. Elliot realized then. Realized it with a clarity that hurt worse than the betrayal. You actually believe that. You think you're the hero. I think I'm the person who had to act when you wouldn't. Call that whatever you want. Outside the conference room, Brielle waited. Pacing, checking her phone, replaying everything Naomi had said in the safe house, replaying the logic that turned theft into rescue, turned betrayal into mercy, turned destruction into love. The door opened. Elliot stepped out. His face was blank, controlled, but his eyes told the story. Grief, rage, loss, all of it tangled together in a knot that wouldn't untie. Brielle didn't ask questions. Just moved to him. Let him pull her close. Let him hold on like she was the only solid thing left in a world that had just proven family meant nothing. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be. You were right. About all of it. The fraud. The betrayal. The people I trusted. You saw it when I was too blind to look. That doesn't make it hurt less. No, but it makes it true. And I'd rather hurt with truth than live with her version of love. They walked to the car, drove in silence, pulled into the safe house garage. Inside, Marisol was waiting. Her face was grim. Harper just posted a statement, Marisol said. Public. Full page in 3 major outlets. She's positioning herself as the whistleblower. Says she's been cooperating with investigators for months. Says she tried to warn Elliot about Naomi and Quentin but was silenced. Says she's the real victim in all this. She what? Marisol showed them the article. Harper's face. Perfect lighting. Concerned expression. Headline. I tried to save him. Harper Kensington speaks out on Sterling Industries fraud. Elliot read 3 paragraphs and stopped. She's rewriting the story. Making herself the hero and us the villains. Worse, Marisol said. She's claiming Brielle manipulated you. That the relationship is part of a pattern of poor judgment. That you're not stable enough to run the company anymore. Brielle felt the ground drop out. She's using us against each other. She's protecting herself. And doing it by burning everyone else. Elliot's phone rang. Naomi. He almost didn't answer. But something, curiosity maybe, or just the need to hear her voice one more time, made him pick up. What? He said. Would you forgive family who harmed you? For your own good? Naomi asked. Elliot didn't answer. I didn't think so, Naomi continued. But maybe one day, when you understand that sometimes the people who hurt you are the only ones who cared enough to try. I'm sorry, Elliot, for all of it. But I'm not sorry I tried to save you. She paused. Then softer, Harper knew. She just stayed clean. She helped craft the entire PR scapegoat plan. She chose who to burn to protect you. Or rather, to protect her access to you. Ask her what she signed. Not the vehicle. The other document. The one that made Brielle the backup villain if things went wrong. The line went dead. Naomi says one last thing. Harper knew. She just stayed clean. Marisol filed for emergency relief at 9 p.m. The courthouse was nearly empty. Just a night judge, a court reporter, and lawyers arguing over documents that proved fraud or proved nothing depending on who you believed. The filing was thick. 300 pages. Every transaction. Every signature. Every lie carefully documented and cross-referenced. We're requesting immediate injunction to freeze the share transfer and block the Delaware vehicle's operational control move, Marisol said. Her voice was steady, professional, but underneath, Brielle could hear exhaustion. They'd been fighting for days, weeks, and the finish line kept moving. The judge, older, gray-haired, tired, read through the filing, flipped pages, frowned, looked up at Quentin's lawyers. This is substantial evidence of irregularities. Why wasn't this flagged during internal review? Because the review was internal, Marisol said. Approved by the same people orchestrating the fraud. Quentin's lead attorney stood. Smooth, confident, expensive. Your Honor, this is a vendetta. Mr. Sterling is being manipulated by an employee with romantic motivations. The so-called evidence is selectively presented and lacks context. The restructuring is legitimate. The liabilities are real. And this filing is nothing more than a desperate attempt to avoid accountability. Accountability for what? Elliot asked. He wasn't supposed to speak. But he did anyway. For trusting people who stole from me? For believing family meant something? For signing documents I thought were saving my company when they were actually destroying it? Mr. Sterling, the judge warned, let your attorney speak. My attorney is speaking. I'm just adding context. Elliot's voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that came from having nothing left to lose. Quentin Lawrence inflated my company's liabilities using shell entities and double-counted expenses. My sister helped. My girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, knew. And now they're all pointing fingers at the one person who told me the truth. The woman they're calling unstable, obsessed, manipulative. The woman who served coffee and saw what billion-dollar audits missed. The judge looked at Brielle. You're Ms. Torres? Yes, Your Honor. You're not a party to this filing. No, but I'm the reason it exists. The judge studied her. Long enough that Brielle felt exposed. Judged. Weighed against standards she'd never meet. Then he looked back at the documents. I'm granting temporary relief, he said. 48 hours. The share transfer is frozen. Operational control remains with current board structure. But this is provisional. If new evidence emerges that contradicts these findings, the relief vanishes. Understood. Yes, Your Honor, Marisol said. They left the courthouse at midnight. Brielle and Elliot walked to the car in silence. The city was quiet, cold, the kind of night that felt like an ending or a beginning, depending on which direction you looked. Inside the car, Elliot's phone buzzed. A message from Quentin. You won the battle, but you're about to lose the war. Check your email. Check the headlines. Check what happens when you make me the villain. Elliot opened his email. Found a message with video attachments. Security footage. Hotel cameras. Timestamps from the night Brielle and Elliot first went to his apartment. The night they first kissed. The night everything became real. The footage was edited. Cut together to look damning. Intimate moments made to seem calculated. Passion twisted into manipulation. And attached was a press release scheduled to go live in 6 hours. Sterling CEO's secret affair. How romance clouded judgment and cost investors millions. He's going to leak it, Brielle said, voice flat. He's going to make us the scandal. Make the fraud disappear under gossip. Let him. Elliot. I don't care anymore. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they think. I don't care if the world believes I'm compromised or manipulated or whatever lie makes them feel better. He turned to her. Eyes fierce. Honest. Unguarded. I care about you. I care about the truth. I care about building something that doesn't require me to pretend I don't feel what I feel. Brielle felt tears threaten. Pushed them back. This will destroy your reputation. My reputation was already destroyed. The moment I trusted Quentin. The moment I signed Harper's contract. The moment I let other people define what my life should look like instead of building the one I wanted. He reached for her hand. I'm done hiding. Done calculating. Done letting fear make my choices. Brielle leaned forward, kissed him. Not desperate, not frantic, just honest. A choice made in full view of the consequences. They drove back to the safe house, walked inside, locked the world out. That night, Brielle chose intimacy as comfort, not escape. She initiated every step, set every boundary, decided how far and how fast and what mattered. Elliot followed her lead, letting her set pace and power, treating her like a person making choices, not someone being carried by circumstances. It was gentle, real, honest. Everything the headlines would twist into scandal. Everything the world would judge. And neither of them cared anymore. Afterward, they lay tangled together, breathing synchronized. The weight of the fight temporarily lifted. Elliot's phone buzzed. An email from the court. Emergency relief granted 48 hours, subject to review if new evidence emerges. The judge grants temporary relief, yet warns it can vanish if new evidence appears. The board meeting started at 8 a.m. Emergency session. Full attendance required. Quentin sat at one end of the table, confident as ever. Elliot at the other, looking like he'd aged a decade in a week. Marisol stood near the projector, remote in hand, ready to present evidence that would either save them or bury them deeper. "Let's begin," the board chairman said. "Mr. Sterling has requested this session to present findings from an independent forensic audit. Quentin, you'll have opportunity to respond." Marisol clicked the remote. The first slide appeared. Numbers, transactions, timelines, everything clean and documented and impossible to deny. "Sterling Industries' financial collapse was manufactured," Marisol said. Her voice was steady, clear, damning. Over 18 months, CFO Quentin Lawrence systematically inflated liabilities through shell companies, double-counted expenses, and reclassified temporary reserves as permanent debt. The goal was simple: trigger mandatory restructuring clauses that would transfer operational control to a Delaware entity he partially owned. She clicked through slides, each one showing another layer of fraud. Phantom liabilities, Nevada consulting fees that produced nothing, warehouse debt recorded twice. Every crime carefully documented and cross-referenced. "This wasn't mismanagement," Marisol continued. "This was theft. Deliberate, calculated, designed to look like rescue while actually stealing the company from the inside." The board members leaned forward, faces changing from skeptical to shocked to angry. Quentin's lawyers whispered urgently. Quentin himself stayed calm. Too calm, like he'd expected this. "These are serious allegations," the chairman said. "Quentin, your response?" Quentin stood, smoothed his tie, smiled that smile that had convinced investors and board members and Elliot himself for years. "This is what happens when desperation meets manipulation. Elliot is being controlled by a woman with no credentials, no experience, and a clear romantic agenda. Every transaction Marisol just showed you was approved through proper channels, reviewed by internal audits, signed off by executive leadership including Naomi Kincaid. This isn't fraud. This is standard restructuring being reframed by people who don't understand corporate finance." "Then explain the Nevada entity," one board member said. "Explain why Sterling paid $2 million for consulting that produced no reports. Strategic advisory services don't always produce visible deliverables. They produce guidance, connections, market intelligence. Explain the double-counted warehouse debt, accounting error, corrected in subsequent quarters. Explain why the Delaware vehicle traces back to a trust you control." Quentin's smile flickered, just for a second. "I don't control that trust. I'm a beneficiary. There's a difference." Marisol clicked to another slide. Bank records, wire transfers, money flowing from Sterling Industries through Nevada to Delaware to offshore accounts. And at the end of every trail, Quentin's name. "You profited $3 million, Marisol said, "while the company you were supposed to protect hemorrhaged assets. That's not restructuring. That's embezzlement." The room went silent, heavy, crushing. Quentin's lawyers whispered faster. Quentin's calm finally cracked. "Fine," he said. "You want names? You want to know who else was involved? I'll give you names. Names bigger than me. Names you'll wish you never heard. We don't make deals with thieves, the chairman said. Then you're fools, because this goes higher than you think. Board members, investors, people you trust, people you report to. I didn't do this alone. Couldn't have. And if I go down, I'm taking everyone with me. He pulled out his phone, started typing. The board watched. Elliot watched. Brielle, standing near the door, watched Quentin unravel in real time. Then Quentin stopped, looked up, looked directly at Elliot, and smiled one more time. Ask her what she signed, he said, pointing at the doorway. Everyone turned. Harper stood there, perfect as always, face calm, but something in her eyes looked trapped. What's he talking about? The chairman asked. Harper stepped into the room, closed the door behind her. I didn't sign the Delaware vehicle. I need that on record. I had no ownership stake, no financial benefit, no direct involvement in the fraud. But you knew, Elliot said. I knew. Her voice was quiet, honest for the first time since this started. I knew, and I stayed quiet because I thought keeping you stable was more important than exposing the crime. I thought protecting your image mattered more than the truth. I was wrong. What did you sign? Marisol asked. Harper pulled a folder from her bag, set it on the table. Inside were documents, PR strategies, scapegoat plans, communications designed to shift blame if the fraud was ever exposed. I signed the crisis management plan, Harper said. The one that made Brielle the backup villain if things went wrong. The one that positioned her as obsessed, unstable, manipulative. The one that turned her truth into a weapon against herself. She looked at Brielle. I'm sorry. I thought you'd bounce back. I thought reputation was flexible. I thought wrong. The board voted. Unanimous. Quentin's access was removed. His assets frozen. Criminal charges filed. Security escorted him out while he shouted threats that sounded more like confessions. Brielle and Elliot shared a silent look across the room. Heat, relief, unfinished hunger. They'd won. For now. But the cost was written on both their faces. Quentin points at Harper and says, ask her what she signed. The restructuring took 3 months. Not the kind Quentin planned. The kind that actually fixed things. Elliot brought in external auditors, independent board members, open reporting lines that let employees flag problems without fear. Protected dissent became policy. Real checks and balances that couldn't be overridden quietly by executives who smiled while they stole. Brielle watched it happen from the outside. She'd resigned from the hotel. Couldn't go back to serving coffee after exposing billion-dollar fraud. Couldn't pretend she was invisible when the world had finally seen her. Instead, she re-enrolled in school. Accounting degree, finance courses. No longer hiding her intelligence to survive. No longer making herself small so others felt comfortable. Her mom's treatment continued. Successful. Stable. Renee was in remission, spending her recovery telling everyone who'd listen about her daughter who fought billionaires and won. Brielle visited twice a week, bringing textbooks and stories about classes where professors actually listened when she spoke. I'm proud of you, Renee said during one visit. Not because you won. Because you chose truth when lying would have been easier. Lying would have kept me employed. Lying would have kept you small. There's a difference. Elliot rebuilt the company with Brielle's help. Not officially. She wasn't on payroll. Wasn't part of the executive structure. But he brought her in as a consultant. Paid her fairly. Listened when she found problems. Treated her intelligence like the asset it was instead of the threat everyone else had called it. They were careful, professional in meetings, distant in public. The world was still watching, still judging, still waiting for proof that their relationship was manipulation instead of choice. So they gave the world nothing except results. Clean audits, honest reporting, a company that functioned without theft hiding in the margins. But in private, they were real. Mornings in Elliot's apartment, coffee and spreadsheets and Brielle studying on his chest while he traced patterns on her back. Evenings planning the future they'd almost lost. Nights choosing each other again and again without shame or secrecy. One morning, Brielle noticed a scar on Elliot's ribs. Thin, old, faded to white. She traced it with her fingers. "What's this from?" she asked. "Car accident. 10 years ago. I was driving too fast. Thought I was invincible." He paused. "Took a crash to teach me I wasn't." "You learn the lesson?" "Eventually. Took another crash to make it stick." He looked at her. "You saved my life, you know? Not just the company. Me. The person I was becoming. The person who thought survival meant calculation instead of honesty." Brielle kissed him. Soft. Grateful. "You saved mine too. Gave me a reason to stop hiding." They dressed. Prepared for another day of rebuilding. Another day of proving that companies could function with transparency. That power didn't require secrets. That the people at the bottom deserved to be heard as much as the ones at the top. Elliot's phone buzzed. A message from Harper. "I need to talk to Brielle. Alone. Just once. Then I'll disappear." Elliot showed Brielle. She read it. Looked up. "Should I meet her? Do you want to?" "I want to understand. I want to hear her explain how she justified it. How she convinced herself that protecting you meant destroying me. Then meet her. But I'll be close. Just in case." Brielle texted back. "Agreed to coffee. Public place. Tomorrow afternoon. One conversation to close a chapter that should have never opened." Harper requests a private meeting with Brielle alone. Elliot stood in front of the same desk. Same documents. Same pen. But everything else had changed. The suite was different now. New furniture. New energy. New people who reported problems instead of hiding them. The contract in front of him wasn't a surrender. It was a declaration. Notice of intent to pursue fraud charges and void transfer attempt. Sterling Industries versus Quinton Lawrence, Naomi Kincaid et al. Marisol stood beside him. "Once you sign this, it's public record. No taking it back. No settling quietly. This goes to trial. Everyone's dirty laundry gets aired. Including yours." "I know. Naomi will fight. She has resources. Connections. She'll make this ugly. She already did." "And Harper." Elliot glanced toward the window. Outside, Brielle sat at a cafe table across from Harper. He could see them talking. Couldn't hear the words. Could only watch body language. Brielle's back straight. Harper's face calm but strained. "Harper made her choice," Elliot said. "Now I'm making mine." He signed. Black ink on white paper. His name. His company. His declaration that theft disguised as family loyalty was still theft. That love twisted into control was still abuse. That the most dangerous theft is the kind that convinces you to sign it yourself. Marisol countersigned as witness. Filed the documents electronically. Within an hour, the filing would be public. Within a day, the press would explode. Within a week, depositions would start. But for now, in this moment, there was just the signature. The choice. The refusal to stay silent. At the cafe, Harper finished her confession. "I didn't sign the Delaware vehicle. That was Quinton and Naomi. But I helped craft the PR scapegoat plan. I helped design the narrative that would destroy you if the fraud was exposed. I told myself it was protection. That Elliot needed stability more than truth. That you'd bounce back because people like you always do." Harper's voice cracked. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. It doesn't fix anything. But it's true." Brielle listened. Processed. Finally spoke. "Did you ever care about him? Actually care? Or was it always strategy?" "I cared about what he represented. The access. The visibility. The life I thought I wanted." Harper looked away. "I don't think I'm capable of caring about people the way you do. I think I just see opportunities. And I hate that about myself. But I don't know how to be different." "Then learn. Get help. Figure out why power matters more to you than people. Because the next person you use will figure it out eventually. And you'll end up here again. Apologizing for damage you convinced yourself was protection." Harper nodded. Stood. Extended her hand. Brielle looked at it. Didn't shake. Just nodded once. Acknowledgement without forgiveness. Recognition without reconciliation. Some wounds didn't heal just because someone said sorry. Harper left. Brielle walked back to the Sterling Industries building. Took the elevator to Elliot's office. He was waiting. Document signed. Future uncertain. But honest. Finally honest. "How'd it go?" he asked. She apologized. Explained. Tried to make it make sense. Did it? No. But at least now I understand. She chose image over truth. Strategy over people. Safety over honesty. And she convinced herself that made her smart instead of empty. Elliot pulled Brielle close. Not desperate. Not calculated. Just real. "I choose you. Not the strategy. Not the optics. Not the version the world wants. You. The woman who served coffee and saw fraud. The woman who fought back when everyone told her to shut up. The woman who made me remember what honest feels like." Brielle kissed him. "I choose you too. The man who listened. Who delayed signing. Who chose truth over survival. Who rebuilt with witnesses instead of hiding in secrets. They chose each other without secrecy. Desire without shame. Commitment without control. Not perfect. Not easy. But real. Built on truth instead of performance. On respect instead of calculation. On love that looked like partnership instead of ownership." 6 months later, Sterling Industries released its first post-restructuring financial report. Clean. Honest. Profitable in a way that didn't require theft. Brielle's name appeared in the acknowledgments. Special thanks to Brielle Torres, whose courage and insight made this recovery possible. She framed it. Hung it beside her college diploma. Reminders that speaking up mattered. That truth fought back. That the small person could be right even when the powerful people refused to listen. If this story hit you, subscribe for more dramas rooted in real choices, real consequences. Brielle learned the truth about power in one sentence. The most dangerous theft is the kind that convinces you to sign it yourself.